you ever walked into a client's house and realized the man paying for your service is also the one deciding your academic future? I started cleaning houses in my underwear to afford tuition, and one day I had a client who specifically ordered someone matching my exact type, my age, my hair color, everything. But when Professor Harrison opened that door and realized his perfect match was his own graduate student, I think we both died inside. I immediately tried to salvage the situation by explaining that the maid service normally filters these conflicts out, and there must have been an error, offering to leave right away and have them send someone else. All he could do was nod, so I called the office to explain the mix-up and got out of there. But that door slamming behind me and the panic I'd seen in his eyes made it clear this wasn't over. The rest of that semester became a masterclass in academic ghosting, as Professor Harrison refused to make eye contact with me in lectures, wouldn't call on me when I raised my hand, and acted like I was invisible during group discussions even though participation was 20% of our grade. My classmates started noticing the weird dynamic and asking if I'd done something to offend him, but I just shrugged and said, professors have their favorites while dying inside, knowing this was going to affect my final year. After months of this treatment, I knew I had to do something because he was my dissertation supervisor, and these meetings weren't optional, so I sent him a professional email requesting a standard meeting to discuss my dissertation topic like every other student was doing. The email was completely normal and boring, just asking for a time slot to review my research proposal and make sure I was on the right track, but apparently that was enough to send him into full panic mode, because less than a week later, I was called into the dean's office where I found out Professor Harrison had filed a formal complaint claiming I'd shown up at his house trying to trade my body for academic help, which was so far from reality that I actually laughed before realizing they were serious. I immediately called my agency and got them to send over the recorded phone conversation from that night, which clearly showed me being professional and him requesting a different maid, but the university still said they couldn't put me back in his classes because of the nature of the allegations, which meant I couldn't complete my required dissertation track and would have to delay graduation or transfer. The investigation dragged on for weeks while my life fell apart around me, and even though the recording proved I hadn't done what he claimed, they said without his payment record showing he specifically requested lingerie service, it was still his word against mine about the context. I was drowning in stress and anxiety, barely sleeping or eating, so the university suggested I see someone at student counseling services to help me cope with everything. That's when everything changed, because I walked into the counselor's office and started pouring my heart out to Dr. Rachel, who listened with professional calm as I explained how my life was being destroyed by these false accusations from my professor. I spilled everything about that night, how he'd specifically requested lingerie service and was now claiming I'd come on to him for grades when he was the client who literally ordered me. As I said his name was Mr. Harrison and described the address where this happened, I watched her pen stop moving mid-sentence and her face drain of all color, though she tried to maintain her composure. She asked me to repeat the date and time of the incident, and something shifted in her expression from professional concern to personal horror, and she excused herself for a moment. When she came back, Dr. Rachel's hands were shaking as she told me she had a professional obligation to report this to the board immediately because of what she now knew about Professor Harrison. I've already tried everything, I told her, but she looked me straight in the eyes and said, no, you don't understand. I'll handle this and you'll hear from the board within 48 hours. I promise you this ends now. I wasn't even at the door before she was on the phone making emergency calls. The board meeting happened within 48 hours, and when I walked in, Dr. Rachel was already there with boxes of documents, and that's when she dropped the bomb that she was Professor Harrison's wife. She explained to the board that they'd been in intensive couples therapy for 2 years, dealing with what she thought was a pornography addiction that he'd promised was under control, but she had no idea he was targeting students or using escort services until I'd unknowingly told her everything in our session. She came prepared with 2 years of documentation from their couples counseling sessions, where he'd admitted to compulsive sexual behavior, plus bank statements showing he'd spent thousands of dollars on various services while telling her he was at conferences or working late. She testified that she'd been trying to save their marriage thinking it was just pornography, but learning he'd hired a student and then maliciously tried to destroy her academic career when caught made her realize he was a predator who needed to be stopped, and the board voted unanimously to terminate Professor Harrison immediately, the whole thing taking less than 10 minutes. Dr. Rachel got me reinstated, helped me find a new advisor, and a year later watched me graduate as we both finally stepped away from the man who tried to destroy us.